Hey guys, today we're going to talk all about credit scores. I went and canceled a credit card that I was tired of paying this annual fee on the Southwest card, and so I went and canceled it. We're going to break down how much did it actually affect my credit when I actually canceled that. We'll talk about some of the components of the credit score that we want to be thinking about as well. So stay tuned and we'll break it all down. But if this is your first time joining us, welcome. My name is Michael Foley. I'm a certified financial planner and a certified student loan professional, and I'm also the son of two doctors, and I really developed Lifestyle Creep to help the health care workers in our society and their families to really be more intentional in their finances, and through a simplified approach to really try to break down the complexities in the world of finances. I hope to help you in your own finances as well. So excited to dive into this with you, and thanks for joining. So before we get into how much it actually changed my credit score personally when I canceled this card that I've had for like 9 years at this point, I want to break down what are actually the components of a credit score, okay? So I think this is always kind of a foggy, thing. What is the credit score? And so really the credit score is, a score that they give you for the debt in the world of debt to try to identify how good of a debtor are you, right? So are you good to be lending money to? And so you kind of have to build a relationship with them over time for them to get to know that. And so they base their score that you have off of these 5 different components, but they're not all weighted the same. And so it's really important to kind of break those down. So the first one is payment history. So have you missed payments? Have you had late payments? Those sorts of things are really impactful. It counts for 35% of your score. The next one is credit mix. So do you have a car loan, a mortgage, and a credit card, right? Do you have multiple lines of credit, and what is that mix? It counts for a little bit of the credit score. It's about 10% of your credit score that plays into that. Then there's new credit. So are you having new draws on the hard credit pulls or other things like that? Are you constantly taking out new debt? That's another big impact on your credit score as well, because it could be negative if you're taking out a lot of debt very frequently. So how much debt do you have outstanding? And that accounts for a large majority, about 30% of that. So the more debt you have outstanding, but keep in mind it's not proportional, right? So if you have more credit card debt, that's going to have a higher impact on your credit score than, even if you have several $100,000 in student loan debt, right? It's funny to see how the student loans really very minimally affect your credit score. So you can pay off your credit cards and it not really affect your credit score that much, and vice versa. You could have $1 million of credit card debt, and I'd venture to guess that having maybe $30,000 credit card debt is going to be a much more impactful pull on your credit score than having even like $1 million on your student loans. So something to be thinking about. Same goes for mortgages. But now the other thing is, the last component is length of credit history. So how long have you been a debtor? How long have you been taking out loans? So that, what kind of track record have you had during that? This is the one that's I'm really curious about, because this is the only one that this kind of the lowest impact that you can actually change. You can't increase this by anything but time, right? So just having a credit card for a longer period of time, having a mortgage for a longer period of time, I can't really change it all that much. But this is something that when I was looking at which cards to cancel, I had this Southwest Visa card that I was super jazzed about getting because it had all these points, and I was doing a lot of traveling and stuff like that over the time. But it really was not something that there was $100 annual fee, and we ended up getting a Costco card because we shop at Costco all the time. I wanted to get those points, from that. But that's something that I didn't want to cancel this other card with the Southwest Visa, because I knew that it was going to impact my credit, and that was my longest standing credit card, and so that I know accounts for 15% of my credit score. And so I was a little bit nervous when I went to cancel this thing, and I kind of put it off for a couple years, but I did it for your guys' sake, because I was tired of having this. I'm not taking out any new debt anytime soon, and really wanted to kind of see how is this actually going to impact my credit score. Okay, so when we actually broke it down, this card that I was canceling, Southwest had 9 years of credit history. It's my longest standing credit history. It's the longest loan of debt, the history that I have. I didn't miss a payment or anything for the whole time, so that was a good clean history, which also accounts for the payment history, right? So if I have one card that maybe had a bad history on it but didn't have as much length, that could also impact things as well. But this one had perfect payment history all the way through for 9 years. But I have another American Express card that I've had for almost 8 years now. So it's also pretty close. So, I wasn't sure if it was going to impact my credit score all that much because there's still another card that I'm keeping that is going to be almost just as long. So that's something to keep in mind. I use Credit Karma to kind of keep track of my credit score. You can get free credit pulls on there. They don't do like a hard pull. So it's a good kind of keep track of that. There's a ton of different sites. I'm not sponsored by Credit Karma or anything, but they're a great way to keep tabs of where that is. And so when I went, I called Southwest Visa and I said, hey, I'm done. I don't want to pay your annual fee anymore. I'm not even using this card. Canceled it. So the impact that it had, and you got to keep in mind on credit scores, there's actually two main companies that actually track it. So there's TransUnion and there's Equifax. So I won't get into the details of the nuances between them, but they track a little bit different things. But at the end of the day, they're all abiding by this, right? And so they're going to have pretty similar outputs. And so with TransUnion, when they actually ran my credit score, after I canceled the card, it dropped me 19 points, right? So again, it didn't impact me all that much, right? If you're over a certain limit, you can afford a drop in your credit score and it really still not be a big impact for you. But if we're already struggling, maybe we have a lot of credit card debt or we have other stuff, this could be a really big component to maybe not want to cancel your card. If it's 19-point drop, that could potentially make it harder for you to take out other loans or mortgages and end up paying higher interest rates because of your poor credit score. So that was a big hit. Equifax is a little bit less. It dropped me 14 points on Equifax. So that was something that, again, a little bit less. I don't know why, they're a little bit different, but there definitely was. So they're right. It's true that your credit score does drop when you cancel a card, and especially if that's one of your longest standing credit cards on your books, it's going to have a pretty solid impact. I venture to guess that if I didn't have that American Express that also had that almost 8 years of credit history, if I didn't have that one and it would take my credit history from 9 years all the way to maybe 3 years, I would suspect that we'd have a much bigger hit on my credit score as well. So as you're thinking about what cards do you have and really trying to simplify all these cards, we see a lot of folks that have, frankly, too many credit cards and we want to try to trim it. But keeping these factors in mind so that when you do cancel a card, maybe we maintain that one that has a little bit longer loan history for a little bit until we get some other longer loan history on some of the newer cards. But the hard thing is with these fees, because sometimes they have these really high annual fees, and they make sense if you're using them as your primary card. But if you venture away from that, you're not using that as your primary card anymore, and you're still going to pay an annual due. That sucks, right? And we really want to get rid of that even if it means taking a hit on our credit score. But we got to remember that your credit score does not equate to financial independence. It does not equate to being more savvy financially. Your credit score is a determinator of how good are you in repaying your debt. A lot of people want to put this as kind of like their identity is how good they are with their finances. All this shows me is that you're good at taking out debt. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're doing the right things in other areas of our finances. So don't idolize this credit score because it's really just one component. But if we don't keep, at least tabs on what that credit score will look like, it could make it harder for some of those big responsible purchases that we are getting, like a mortgage on a house or something like that, that could make you have lower credit history, lower credit score, meaning higher interest rate potentially, because you don't have that trust with the banking systems because of that. So it does reduce your credit score when you cancel a card. Let us know if there's other questions that you guys have about your specific credit situation. Our team would be happy to sit down with you and break down to see if we maybe do have a lot of cards and we're trying to trim it down. Be happy to sit down and kind of see which ones we might want to cancel, because it's helpful to have a coach sometimes looking over your shoulder as you're going through this. So we'd love to come alongside you and your family in that. And so feel free to reach out. We'll put our contact in the description below, and look forward to seeing you in the next episode.